Hello friends, we are here to study about primary sources of information. Let us first understand what is an information source. An information source is a person, thing or place from which information comes, arises or is obtained. In today's world, there are various sources of information such as books, radio, TV, magazines, newspapers, internet and e-resources. Information in a library can come from virtually anywhere: media, blogs, personal experience, expert opinions and web pages. And the type of information you need will change depending on the question you are trying to answer. Let us see what are the various kinds of sources of information. According to Krishna Kumar, sources of information are of two types: documentary sources, which are further classified as primary, secondary and tertiary sources, and non-documentary sources, which are further classified as formal and informal sources of information. Primary sources of information. These are the first published records of original research and development or description of new application or new interpretation of old theme or idea. These represent unfiltered original ideas, and these constitute always the latest available information. Secondary sources. These are those sources that analyze, review or summarize information from primary sources or other secondary sources. These often rely on other secondary sources to reach the results. Tertiary sources. These are the sources that provide overview of topics by synthesizing information gathered from other resources. Let us discuss about primary sources of information. Primary sources are the original sources of information recorded at the time an event occurred. These are the first-hand accounts of events, contain data collected for scientific studies, and also consist of historical documents. Let us now look into various types of primary sources. There are two types: published primary sources and unpublished primary sources. Published primary sources consist of journals, research monographs, patents, dissertations and theses, and trade literature. Periodicals. These include journals, magazines, bulletins, conference proceedings which appear on a regular basis, report the results of researchers more quickly than the books. Periodicals are the most current published information. They are often the best sources to use in research report writing. Review of new books also appear in periodicals. Research monographs. These are basically a short treatise that presents reports on the results of the original research. Unlike a textbook which surveys the state of knowledge in a field, the main purpose of a monograph is to present primary resources and original scholarship. Monographs are used to help control the quality of pharmaceutical, dietary supplement and food ingredient products. Patents. These are the official document having seal of the government. It is a grant of protection for an invention. Owning a patent gives you the right to stop someone else from making, using or selling your invention without your prior permission. Standards. It is a pamphlet covering definitions, methods, properties and measurements, etc. It also contains diagrams and tables. These are highly used in scientific laboratories. Dissertations. These are a document submitted in support of a candidate for an academic degree or professional qualification presenting the research and findings under the supervision of the guide. Trade literature. It is produced by manufacturers to encourage sales of their products. They use printed matter such as catalogs, brochures, templates, etc. before advertising their products. Autobiographies, first-hand experiences of the authors, written by the authors themselves, thus making them interesting to the readers and enabling them to understand the other unseen side of the authors. There are various autobiographies such as Playing It My Way by Sachin Tendulkar, The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, Wings of Fire by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, The Race of My Life by Milkha Singh, to name some of them. Unpublished sources of information. These are the sources that remain unpublished due to certain reasons, such as laboratory notebooks, personal diaries, letters, personal letters, internal research reports, oral history, coins, manuscripts, interviews, speeches, eyewitness evidence during any crime. Eyewitness is a person who actually sees some act, occurrence or thing and can give a first-hand account of it. It is mostly used in crime cases. Original works of art. These are nothing but the physical item or artistic creation. Any list of most famous paintings would be incomplete without the mention of the Mona Lisa painting by Leonardo da Vinci. Functions of primary sources. The most important function is to serve as a record of original events and to provide first-hand observation of the people or events. Advantages of primary sources of information. The most important thing is that they are more accurate in depicting the nature of the events as they unfold. Think about the television interview you may have seen about your favorite film star. The film star being interviewed is going to provide an accurate meaning behind his or her role in new film. However, the movie critic who writes an article about the same film may interpret its meaning differently and therefore provides an opinion rather than accurate information from the actor. Disadvantages of primary sources of information. These are very rarely available, but in some cases it becomes costly to use and acquire. Think about ancient Sanskrit manuscripts. These are great primary sources for providing information from that time period. However, any student writing a paper on ancient Sanskrit subject will not likely be able to get his or her hands on an actual manuscript. The second advantage is that identity of author may be unclear, especially in case of government documents. Also, author may be no longer living and thus cannot be consulted for verification. Let us look into the various forms of primary sources of information. Text form. It includes anything which can be written down. Various documents such as personal diary or letters, research monographs, published works like newspapers, periodicals, government documents, laboratory reports, trade literature comes under this form of primary sources. Images. These consist of anything which can be visually seen. It consists of paintings, photographs, and also maps of ancient era. Recordings. These consist of anything which can be recorded by audio or video. It consists of music, interviews or speeches, oral history, TV shows, radio programs, films, etc. Others. These consist of everything else such as coins, stone manuscripts, toys, potteries of ancient era, also the Egyptian artifacts. Let us see the importance of primary sources of information. For years, historians and educators have understood the value of primary sources in education, such as expose students' involvement in research debates. Due to the original content, students tend to be involved during their research work. Develop critical thinking skills. Since primary sources are connected to history and often are incomplete, they require students to be analytical and examine sources thoughtfully. Acquire empathy for human conditions. Primary sources help students relate in a personal way to events to the past, coming away with a deeper understanding of history as a series of events. Consider different points of view in analysis. In analyzing primary sources, students move from observation and facts to making inferences about the materials. So, point of view is most important inferences that can be drawn for understanding of the evidence. For writing papers, primary sources allow the students to connect with the material as historians themselves as they engage in the search for valid evidence during their research project.